Hi guys, it's Christina from Redefine Creative, and I am back with another sketch for 30 Days of Sketches with Christy from Christy's Beautiful Life. And this sketch for today calls for this big kind of left-handed strip of papers or embellishments of some kind. And that's going to be kind of the focal point of the layout. And so Christy had challenged me to use the Summer Lights collection. And so that's what I'm going to be using today for this layout. And I have two different process videos going up today, and both of them are using leftovers. So collections and pieces of collections that are things that I have left after I've already created some projects with those kits or with those collections. So it's all kind of like leftover bits and pieces of things. And so I have pulled out this, one of the 12 by 12 papers from this collection had a bunch of strips and kind of embellishment squares you could cut apart. And three of them had words in that rectangular format. And so I'm starting with those. And then I'm going to take the leftovers that I still have for my 6 by 6 paper pad and cut a bunch of strips. And so these are going to kind of form the basis of this border element that I have going on. And so I'm just going to flip through that paper pad, and you can see most of the papers have already been cut out of or sliced out of. There's pieces missing, and so there are things that I've already used. Luckily for a design like this, which was really great, is you don't need a whole lot of product. So you can use entirely your scrap bin if you want to create a look like this. And so each of these strips is a little bit different size, and I'm doing that, purposefully because I don't want everything to be completely matching and exactly the same. And so I'm going to use some that are patterns and all different kinds of colors. And then I'm going to also use those ones that have words. And then when I was flipping through that 6 by 6 paper pad, I also had the cut apart sheet in the 6 by 6 size. And I know I've heard from a lot of people who say that they struggle to use those because the scale is so much smaller. And so one good place that I use those typically is in my traveler's notebook. But another thing that I'm going to do today is I'm going to cut out those same exact pieces that I'm using, and I'm going to layer them on top of the 12 by 12 pattern paper size. So what it's going to do is just create a repeating element. So I'm going to have those words, and they're going to repeat over and over throughout that kind of strip. And so now I'm just kind of digging through the ephemera pack, the pieces I have left, to see if there's anything that might be working as well. So I'm just looking for things that are kind of in that rectangular shape. And then I also liked that little ice cream cone, so I think I'm going to use that as well. And so I'm just pulling out ones that I think are going to work. And then I find another little one that says summer, so I'm going to add that down here to kind of be a third repetition of that same word. And then I'm thinking that ice cream cone is going to go over there on the right-hand side at this point. And then I'm just trying to see, I need like one more strip up here at the top. So I'm going to use that little tag that says good times. And that's going to become part of that border element. And so I am going to keep the rest of this layout pretty simple so that those pattern paper strips really do stand out. I've taken my photo and I'm using just a 4 by 6 size, and I've placed it just on white cardstock for my border. And I've left it a little bit thicker than usual to kind of make my photo stand out. And I am going to come back later and put my photo on some dimensional foam adhesive as well so that it does stand up a little bit off the page. And I'm going to also do that with some of the elements that I have in that border strip. And then I'm grabbing some of these kind of Prisma embellishments. And so I'm going to grab two different hearts and then also those two little clouds, and they're going to become part of this border element as well. And what I decide that I need to do, because I have a pattern paper in my background and then I have all these strips, is that I need to take those strips and back them with white cardstock. And so in a second here, you're going to see me start that process, and then I'm going to finish it and adhere those all down kind of off screen so you don't have to watch that tedious process of adding the white cardstock to every single one of those strips. But I do think that it adds a really important kind of characteristic to this border treatment, and you'll see the difference here. It kind of makes each one of those boxes stand out a little bit better when it has that cardstock border around it. And so I've put down all of the bigger strips that I am using, and then all of those little tiny words that are going to be in my repetition, I'm adding some dimensional foam behind, because I want that repetition to be there, but I want them to stand up because they are a little bit smaller. Having them pop up off the page makes them a little bit more kind of visual and adds some interest to that border treatment on the side. And so I'm going to pop up the word gelato and then the word ice cream up here at the top because that is that repetition. And then I'm going to pop up both of the words that say summer that are going to go down in the bottom section as well. And then I also found on the chipboard sheet there was one little phrase that was in a rectangular form still. And it says soaking up the sun, and so that goes along perfectly with my photo as well. So I am going to add that kind of over on the left-hand side in between some of these strips. And I'm just layering everything up over there, and then I'm going to add that dimensional adhesive also to my photo so that that's going to have some height as well. And so this is a really easy way when you don't have a lot of things left over. So I'm really only using pattern paper and one little piece of chipboard so far. I do come back and add a couple of other embellishments, but really I'm not using a ton of supplies to make a really interesting, fun look. And so that's the beauty of using a sketch like this, is it really gives you kind of a place to go where you can look at it and say, hey, I have a lot of scraps, I have a lot of leftovers. Let's see if we can follow the sketch and see what we do with them. Because I did use some more bold strips on the side, I did not add all the matting behind the photo like the sketch called for. So if I would have used a little more like subtle patterns or not so many words over on the left hand side, then I would have added those additional mats around my photo, but I didn't feel like I needed them in this case. The photo kind of stands out better having just that white cardstock mat. The other thing that I decided to do that was different than the sketch is I'm going to move this little embellishment cluster in my title over to the right hand corner of my photo. So in the sketch itself, it called for it to be in the left hand corner, but to me that was putting too much weight and busyness over on that left and not giving me anything to really balance it over on the right. So instead what I'm doing to balance that out is I'm building my embellishment cluster and my title over there on the right hand side, because it's going to serve to kind of put some weight over on that side so that it doesn't get skipped. And so this is just a photo of my kids playing in our hot tub, so it's nothing fancy or there's no like big meaningful story behind this one. It's just a fun photo of them kind of hanging out playing in the backyard. And so this chipboard phrase, hello weekend, worked perfectly to go along with that photo. And it kind of brings that little bit of an iridescent look over to that side as well, because it does have that iridescent shadow behind it. And I did put a little piece of dimensional foam on the bottom just so that it stands evenly on the page. And then I am going to tuck a little yellow star in behind that love this heart. And that, I felt like I just needed that because I had a couple of spots of yellow over on the left side, but I didn't have anything that was really yellow other than the bottom of the letters over on this right hand side. So it just gives me a little pop of yellow over there. And that is basically going to do it. So I kept the rest of the layout very simple so that bold border element could really stand out. But the focus is still obviously on my photo, which is where we want it to be. And so definitely do stop by and check out what Christy did for this sketch as well. I love her layout too. And I will be back to see you again soon. Bye!